What is the worst place you had sex? I'm not sure if this counts because we didn't get very far. But in a Burger King parking lot. I was like 15 and we both had very involved parents. He had a car, so we would park it someplace and hook up in the tiny little two-seater. I was sitting astride him and most of my clothes were off when he froze. I looked over my shoulder and the once abandoned parking lot was abandoned no more. A family of 4 were just staring at us through the windshield. We didn't know what to do, so I just put my shirt back on and we drove away. Edit. So apparently the fact that he had a car makes everyone assume this dude was way older than me. He was a grade ahead of me. His car was as old as he was and barely ran. He'd gotten it when he turned 16. I was not hooking up with a middle-aged man. We were both under 18. Hanoi, Vietnam. I was backpacking and sleeping in dorms. The dorm room had 8 beds. 6 of those beds were filled with my friends. 1 was a stranger. Come back from a night clubbing with an absolutely stunning but trashy British girl. As we get in the room, all my friends start cheering me as I climb the ladder to my bunk. The only privacy was this curtain, so you could still hear everything I was having trouble performing as it is, and then this German guy shouts, "Hey, can you not do this here?" To which the lovely Brit responds, "If you were inside me you wouldn't be saying that, would ya?" Needless to say, it was a horrible experience. Neither of us orgasmed. My childhood house had an enclosed porch that was level with my parents' bedroom window. It's hard to explain. You couldn't see into the porch from the window, but if the porch windows were open and the bedroom windows were open, you could hear everything from either room. So my now husband and I were trying to have sex in that porch, having opened the windows 'cause it was hot AF. My parents usually never opened their window and it was past 10, when they usually went to sleep. We weren't trying to be loud, but apparently we were. After we were done, I checked my phone and I had 5 missed calls and a text from my mother saying, "We can hear everything and please at least use a condom." We didn't acknowledge it at the time, but my mom got drunk a few years ago and told my aunt the story and said she was worried she was hearing the conception of her grandchild. When I was 16, I snuck my boyfriend into my room late at night one time. We have sex and then I sneak him back out. The next day my dad angrily confronts me and says my boyfriend is never allowed back. When I asked why, he angrily shouts, "I heard the whole damn thing last night." He didn't even know I was having sex. I was so completely mortified. That was not something I wanted my dad to know or ever find out anyway. As far as he knew, I was going to be a virgin until my wedding night, and that's how I wanted it with him. I'm 35 years old and I still feel embarrassed when I think about it. Ugh, I have been in your shoes, almost exactly the same setup, except we were in the next room over, where there was a stand-up freezer next to this little like extra bed for guests. I guess it got a little loud. The next morning, my girlfriend's father, now my father-in-law, starts making all of these smart-ass comments, in a funny, "But this isn't cool, I am going to rip your head off" kind of way, about how we slept last night, if we were comfy, was it too cold, stop banging my daughter in the room next to mine. Yeah, it was really awkward and embarrassing. Edit. Damn, I was just thinking, and this happened 20 years ago. Still with that special woman today, smiley face. Edit number 2, thank you for the award, kind stranger. I don't know if I ever received one before, so I really appreciate your kindness. In the woods, with about 50 young bulls that were very interested in everything that was going on. We sneaked in and out of that field about 3 times to try and shake them off, but as soon as you make a sound, they all come running over to watch, with no concept of personal space. We ended up making a barrier out of branches to try and hold them off, but the fuckers just broke right through it in seconds. It was like Shaun of the Dead, but the zombies only want to lick you instead of eat you. Have you ever been licked by a bull? It feels like someone stroking your back with a fish dipped in egg whites. I would say I'm never doing that again, but we went back probably 7 or 8 times. Luckily the cows were always distracted by some sheep in the next field. This is one of the many joys of having parents that don't knock before entering a room. Believe me, if I could not fuck in front of a mooing audience, I would. Edit, just to clarify, the bulls were spectators, not participants despite how hard they tried. Edit again, thanks to you/Connie_fan for an accurate depiction of the event. https://www.reddit.com/r/animals-brothers/comments/ou2u9n/underscore dog_and_his_best_buddies. Edit again, it was in the middle of the day yet. But we went there one evening too, and my god, that was scary. Nobody told me how to deal with bulls. Do you run or stand your ground? I just lifted my GF over the fence into a neighbor's garden because they were getting agitated, and one put its head between my legs and chucked me about 4 feet off the ground. Not doing that again. The secondary conference room of our office. It was mostly unused and we had been fooling around back there sometimes. But, this time we were going at it fully engaged in the act. While that part was great, walking out of the room to find our super conservative CEO/owner sitting very near the door, where he would never be sitting usually, and immediately knowing we'd been caught, was pretty fucking awkward. Thankfully no one walked in, so even though it became a whole ordeal with HR, I was at least spared that trauma. I'm not sure I could have ever spoken to the man again if he'd walked in on me fucking someone from behind on his conference table. Secluded classroom in my high school after all classes were over. Was smart enough to push a table against the door so the handle wouldn't turn, or give, or go down, or however you say it. In the middle of it, hear someone trying to come in and fighting with such door handle. I just grab it and pull up as much as I can and hold, while both me and my then girlfriend, both half naked, are scared as shit. After what feels like 5 minutes, but is probably no longer than 30 seconds, the person on the other side of the door lets go. I look through the keyhole and it's one of the cleaning people, a woman. She walks all the way out that hallway, I said the classroom was secluded, and turns left. As soon as I see her disappear, I tell my GF we have to make a run for it. So we pull our pants up and quickly walk down the hall, turn right, go round the big hole with ramps in the middle of the school, down the ramp, and out of there. It was one of the scariest, heart rate rising wise, experiences of my life. To top it all of, she was an exchange student, so I guess she must have been 10 times more scared than I was. I used to be a kindergarten teacher in Thailand at a big international school. At night, my class was unlocked and I could go in anytime. Foreign teachers lived on campus. I met an American girl on Tinder and then she said she wanted to see my class. Took her to my classroom and showed her around. Ended up doing the deed on my desk. She squirted all over the ground. I couldn't find any paper towels, so I cleaned it up using papers instead. But the class smelled like sex. Next morning, I'm at work and some of my kids are sitting on that spot with the vagina juice on it. It was awful. Thankfully I was leaving Thailand the next week, but it's such a weird memory. In an old barn. There were ladders that brought you up to these second-story platforms along the walls. Floor was covered in hay. Woke up the next morning with some gnarly scratches, itches, and rashes. Would do it again though. Was staying at a friend's cottage. They were in the process of adding a room onto the house above the garage. But a long process indeed, one of those jobs you start but just never seem to totally finish. The room was effectively storage at the time, but also had a bed in it. I was making love to a moderately lucky lady when lo and behold the fucking floor gives out. Unfortunately this isn't a cartoon and we didn't land peacefully on the bed. Instead we lay naked in agony on the cold concrete. I'd shattered my arm and fractured my patella, kneecap. She made it out with some gnarly bruises and scratches but nothing too serious. Thanked me for switching positions not long beforehand. Would potentially do it again though. We did it at her brother's house, in their kids' room. There were crayon scribbles all over the walls, a bunch of toys laying around, and the beds were these two tiny mattresses laying on the floor. The car ride there was extremely quiet and awkward because her brother was taking us, he knew as this was planned. The worst part was that it was my first time and I came in like 10 seconds. We waited around in an awkward silence for probably 20 minutes until I was recharged enough to try again for another 10 minutes. The second time I came it was partially inside her, and she was definitely concerned despite being on BC. She definitely did not come, but my dumb ass asked her if she did. Then to end it all, we get picked up by her brother's entire family, his wife and 2 kids. Most awkward car ride of my life. My experience definitely scarred me. She never seemed interested in sex again after that, so I was never given the chance to redeem myself. It hurt my already low confidence. And I don't know if I'll ever find another partner who is as fun and attractive as she was. I'm not ugly by any means, but it's been a couple years since I've been in any kind of relationship, and sexual desire aside, I desperately miss having that person to talk to about anything, rub their hands through your hair, and all other sorts of little things. I'm so touch-starved it hurts. Lonely too. TLDR, I'm a mess. This went from answering a simple question to opening up to complete strangers on the internet. I doubt anyone will read this in full, but if you do, thank you. Hopefully my story brings someone to smile. Take care and stay safe. Once my now husband's friend visited us and stayed over for the night. We were all drunk and he slept on a mattress on the floor while I slept along with my hubby on the bed. I am usually coy and proper. Not very adventurous or trying to have the thrill types. Also, I had met his friend for the first time. So while we were all asleep, I started coaxing my then BF to have sex. Literally with a man sleeping in the same small room, absolutely quiet environment. If my hubby would put his hand down the bed, he would touch his friend's head types. I was so drunk that I tried to jump on top of my BF. He had to use all his willpower to be the person with the right mind there and to sweetly reject me. He literally cuddled me so hard that I could not be jumpy again. So we did not have sex. When I woke up I was a different person and could not even fathom the idea of me wanting to ride my BF while his friend slept almost next to us. Drinks Chan He Yu Ye grinning face with sweat. I used to share a bedroom with my brother. One time I had my GF over and we were in the mood, so we snuck into my parents' bedroom and I had her bent over my parents' bed, yeah, no standing but bent over. There are quite a few pillows on my parents' bed. Well, there happened to be some pillows laying long way on their bed and she had her hands just past the pillows on the bed. As we were going at it, my youngest brother, not the one I share a bedroom with, wakes up from a nap and pops his head out from under the blanket. I basically fall on top of him to cover his face and grab the remote next to him, trying to create a diversion while we pull our pants up. He asked what we were doing and I say just grabbing the remote. He bought it. But yet I had sex on top of my little brother. On a wooden boardwalk at the beach. In front of an ATM machine. Backseat of my old shitty car. We laid out a blanket and were having sex under the stars in a nice midsummer night in the Bay Area. Drove out to the Santa Cruz Mountains off Highway 17. Beautiful area. Totally isolated where we were. We parked the car sideways across this old gravel road. Sideways for protection in case a car was driving down the road. We then laid a nice blanket out, and we started getting into it. 70 degrees at night. Clear, beautiful night. Moon was high up in the air. This was young love at its finest. Romantic, telling each other you love them, making out, just a really happy night when you're in that puppy love phase. Anyways, a car did come driving down the road, opposite the car. They came on the side where 9IR blankets were. She was on top of me, and then these bright headlights were upon us. We hopped up, she wrapped this blanket around her, I'm stark naked. I can see inside the car now that I'm directly in front of them. Husband and wife, and 2 kids in the back. They had to wait while we got our blankets moved, ran around the car, got it started and proceeded to do a 12-point turn. So embarrassing. Funny to remember now though. LMAO. I attended a boarding school. It was a state-funded STEM program. Most of the kids were extremely intelligent but also extremely sheltered, so the rules were pretty strict. No guys on the girls' wing ever, on-wing curfew at 10:30, and room checks. So if you wanted to fool around you had to get creative. Me and my girlfriend at the time were crazy horny one night and decided we were ready. We kinda broke into the arts building in campus and found a little room that was used for piano practice. In the middle of us having sex on the floor of this 5x5 room with the scratchiest carpet I have felt in my life, a light shined through the window. We threw our clothes on and opened the door to a campus PD officer. He asked for our IDs, and once he saw we were part of the boarding school program he laughed and said not to do it again. I was so embarrassed but luckily got away pretty unharmed for the public smash. Not me, so doesn't really count, but when I was about 16 I was walking my dog and went through the woods and came across a mature couple who were adding a bit of spice to their sex life. Both were completely naked. Woman just softly went oh dear and covered herself. Guy, who had been going down on her, was just crouched there with a massive erection and this freaked out look like teenagers can only see you if you move. Unfortunately I didn't spot them until I was right next to them and not really sure on the social etiquette of the situation, so I just pretended not to see them and walked past. Except my dog, who was a large German Shepherd, needed to make sure I was safe and so decided to give the bloke a good sniff. So had to grab her collar and pull her away. Poor guy was terrified. Imagine thinking you might get bitten by a dog and put on a sex offenders list after accidentally exposing yourself to a kid. When I was probably 17 I was going at it with an ex-girlfriend in my parents' house. We thought no one was home and thought it was a perfect opportunity to use a bed instead of a car. My dad was home but he was outside. I hear him walk in and instantly think, oh shit, I'm fucked. I still had pants on, so I pulled them up and put on my shirt. The girl was butt naked, so I told her to take her clothes and go in my closet. I walk out into the kitchen and say what's up to my dad and act like nothing's going on. He started doing the dishes, so I thought this was my opportunity to get her out of there. I run into my bedroom to find her fully dressed in my closet. I told her to go to the bathroom and flush the toilet and then to come out, saying she was throwing up in there, and she did. Wasn't the hardest thing to believe, cause she had a short esophagus or something that made her throw up a lot. My dad felt bad that she was sick. I'm either sly as fuck or super stupid. I don't think he knew what was going on, but it's possible I'm more obvious than I realize and he just didn't say anything. At my girlfriend's parents' place when we were teenagers. Her dad was an asshole, wouldn't let us hold hands or any of that shit, and believed his daughter was the definition of innocence and purity and that we were just friends. He was an abusive person, hated his guts. Anyway, we were doing it with her lying on her back on their dinner table on a hot summer's day. Literally just as we finished I heard her parents' car pull into the garage and we quickly rushed around gathering clothes and getting dressed and ran and sat on the couch pretending we had been watching TV while they were gone. Her parents came into the house with takeaways and we greeted them. Her dad sat down at the dinner table to eat, and as his elbows hit the table my heart stopped as I looked at the table and realized we hadn't thought to wipe the table that had been basted with an assorted cocktail of sex juices and sweat. He inspected the table and assumed it was spilled water. He removed a handkerchief from his pocket and wiped the table dry and put it back in his pocket. He finished his meal and then used that same handkerchief to wipe his mouth and face and exclaimed, "Wow, that was delicious," and I just thought to myself, oh how fucking right you are. Talk about sickly sweet revenge. Gotta be one of the highest points in my life. A sort of vineyard next to a field with very tall grass in France. Simultaneously the best and the worst. For our purposes here I will detail the worst. Burrs, it was night and we didn't notice until we were heading inside. This was actually not the first time I felt lucky to be bald. My companion had long hair. I think she might still be finding burrs in her hair. Grass. I am not allergic to grass. However, abrasion, or maybe rubbing naked in it a few hours, or something caused the parts of my skin which it had irritated to be a little swollen for a few hours in the morning. There was a creature that kept rusting the grass and coming towards us. We could even hear it breathing. I'm not sure of the wildlife of southern France, but it sounded like it was the size of a large dog. Having some camping experience, I know it could have been the size of a house cat. Regardless, I had to chase it away several times. While stark naked, it always stayed just out of reach of my cell phone's flashlight. If my adrenaline hasn't been up before, it was then. A shower with a cast iron tub, on 2 occasions, with 2 different women. The first time was in college, and she didn't like doggy with guys she wasn't really close to, so I sat on the edge of the tub and had to lift her for each pump since she was too short to reach the floor to push off. In hindsight, this was the better of 2 options, you'll see why later. I wanted to just lift her and do it standing, but she was afraid I'd slip and fall, and there was too big a height difference, a little over a foot, to do standing missionary. Anyway, it was a great arm workout, but they pretty much seized up the next day from essentially double curling 110 pounds for what seemed like 500 reps. The second time, again, the woman was shorter than me by about a foot, this time, doggy. However, because the tub wasn't very wide, I tried getting a wider stance by putting a foot outside of the shower. That got water everywhere, so back inside my foot goes with a much narrower stance and a very deep squat. Now, I'm not muscular to begin with, but unlike the first time, my muscles aren't able to sustain the position for more than +/5 minutes. Through sheer force of will, or something, I finish up, but it was literally the worst experience I've had doing the deed. So let these stories be a lesson for anybody thinking of doing it in a shower. Always make sure the shower stall is wide enough for the guy to get a wide enough stance, otherwise, it'll be pretty horrible.